Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do a tag. This is the What Lurks on Your Kindle tag. This is a weaponized version of a video originally created by Michael K Vaughan, and I will link to both in the notes below. And the idea of this is to show people what is on your Kindle. And Michael K Vaughan originally started lurking on his Kindle because he was doing the read 100 books before you can buy a new book challenge created by the evil mastermind Criminale. And he showed some books on his Kindle. And then Steve Donoghue came around and weaponized it, saying this should be a tag and everyone should be showing what is on their Kindle. Now, I am on the evil 100 book challenge, and I have a lot of books on my Kindle. When I look at my Kindle display, it says I have 2,026 books there. Now, that is also sharing books with my wife's account. I think her account may have 100, maybe 200 books. The rest are all my guilty purchases. So both Michael and Steve sort of picked and choose which books they are going to show. And for me, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I have alphabetized my books on my Kindle by author. And before I show you my Kindle, I'm going to tell you what kind of tech that I use, because Steve Donoghue was very specific. He wanted to see the tech. And this is my brand new Kindle Paperwhite Signature Edition. Most books I will read on my Paperwhite. I think that is the best way to read most books. There are some exceptions. There are some evil mofos out in this world. When they format a Kindle book, they will hard code it to ragged right. And that means that the right end of the page is not adjusted and even. It is just ends randomly between words. And it has a very disorganized look. And it's very difficult for me on the Kindle Paperwhites to read that kind of text. It is not so bad on my Kindle iPad because the screen is so much bigger, you don't recognize that ragged rightness as much. But that's just me going off a tiny little rant. So that is my main one. This is my Kindle iPad Pro. This is the 12-inch version. This is very good because you get a lot of text on the screen when you read here. Look at that. I know it's shiny in the lights. So when you have ragged right, this is very good. It's also good when you're doing some nonfiction, especially when they're maps or pictures that come out much better on the iPad. Now again, like I said, I've done this alphabetical by author, and I'm going to go through all the books that I have not read by author. Not all of them right away. I'm going to cut it off in about 10 minutes or so, and we'll see how many we get through. The first one is The Monkey Wrench Gang by Edward Abbey. This is a novel about let's just say a bunch of environmentalists who are trying to protect the environment by sabotaging building projects and so forth. I think this is very interesting, especially just I came off reading Crime Week about vigilantes killing people, and why these people are technically committing crimes to protect the environment. There is a slight parallel with the vigilantism. I don't know if they kill people in this book or they just sabotage machinery, but I kind of want to pick that up pretty soon and read it. The next one is Foundation, The History of England from its earliest beginnings to the Tudors by Peter Aykroyd. I picked this up on sale years ago. I just read a Peter Aykroyd book this year, Hawksmoor. That was a novel, and I absolutely loved that novel. I'm very curious about picking up this history. I'm not sure I'd like it as much as the novel Hawksmoor, but I'm definitely interested in it. The next is The Education of Henry Adams by Henry Adams. This is an autobiography. This is one of those free public domain ones that I picked up because it was free. Next is Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is the very famous novel about rabbits. I have not read it. I might have heard parts of this book being read aloud in grade school, I think. So I'm somewhat familiar with the story, but I've never read it. But again, I picked it up when it was dirt cheap. The next is The Broomstein by Peter Adelson. This is a novel or a novel in translation. I think it's from the German. Every year, Amazon has a translation week where they offer books in translation for free, and there's usually 5 or 6, and I just grab them all whenever they're available. I have not read this. I don't have any idea what this book is about. The next is The Bird Eater. That's by Anna Alborn. This is a horror novel. If you are a Prime subscriber, they offer free books every month, or one free book every month. You get to select about between 5 or 6. And this is a book that I selected. I really don't pick up those free books anymore because I just got so many damn books that I never hope to get to reading them, but that's one that I picked up. The next is Homeland Elegies by Akhtar. I believe this was nominated for a major prize last year or the year before. It might even won one of the major prizes. There is some question about how much of this is a novel and about how much of this is an autobiography, but it is something I do want to reread one day. The next is The Angel of History by Rapha Almandin. Totally butchered the pronunciation of that name. This is a story of a poet dying of AIDS, and he is hallucinating a conversation with Satan and other angels. Or maybe he really is having a conversation with Satan. I don't know. It sounds like a fascinating book because, as I mentioned earlier in a video I just made the other day, you can't go wrong with Satan or Satanists. The next is The Liar's Gospel by Naomi Alderman. This was, again, a $1.99 sale book. I picked it up because of Mark at Book Time with Elvis. He gave it a very positive review, and when I saw it for $1.99, I said bye. The next is The Shadows of the Pomegranate Tree from the Islam Quartet by Tariq Ali. I know this is a trilogy of historical novels set in the Islamic world. Bought it when it was cheap. Can't remember anything else about it. Next is Europe Against the Jews, 1880 to 1945 by Gotz Ali. This is a history of what Europe did against the Jews. It got a very good review in the Washington Post, I believe. So when I saw it on sale for $1.99, I had to buy it because it's like offering crack to a crack addict. Next are 3 books. The 3-volume biography written by Stephen Ambrose. I have all 3. I have to say that I am totally fascinated with Richard Nixon. I have read 5 or 6 biographies on Nixon. He is just a fascinating character and an awful human being at the same time. I have not read any of these biographies, but one day I will get to them. Night Train by Martin Amos. Martin Amos is a very famous British novelist. He is the son of Kingsley Amis. I have read a few books by Martin Amos before. I have read Money, which is a fabulous novel. It's really a magnificent novel. He also wrote the novel Time's Arrow, which is a very short novel, but it's told chronologically backwards. So on the first page, the character is dying, and then you get to the point of what is causing him to die and just progressing backwards to the beginning of the story. I liked it. I don't think I liked it as much as Money. Night Train is his take on a detective story. Next is a book called Candy Store by Bella Andre. This is actually one of my wife's books. As I said, I think I mentioned it, when you share an account with your spouse, whenever she buys a book, I can see it on my Kindle and she can see all my books on her Kindle. So this is a book, a romance book that she bought. I know absolutely nothing about it. Pornocopia by Piers Anthony. This is a pornographic science fiction book. Or is it a fantasy book? Either way, it's science fiction erotica or fantasy erotica. And it includes something about some demoness having sex with men. Someday I'll get to it, and how bad could it be? Gulag, a history by Anne Applebaum. I believe I have read at least 2 other books by Anne Applebaum. One is about the Soviet Union and the Iron Wall that came down after World War II. And she wrote another one about totalitarianism, basically a criticism of the Trump administration. Next, I have 4 books by Hannah Arnett. She is most known, I think, for Eichmann in Jerusalem, where she came up with her theory about the banality of evil. I have Crisis of the Republic, Lying in Politics, Civil Disobedience on Violence, Thoughts of Politics and Revolution. I believe this is a collection of essays. Again, I bought it because it was cheap. Next is The Life of the Mind, the groundbreaking investigation on how we think. Then Men in Dark Times, and On Violence, and the Origins of Totalitarianism. I have only read Eichmann in Jerusalem. Someday I will get to these. I really should. The next is kind of a curious thing for Kindle. It is The Combinations by Louis Armand. And this is kind of unique because this is not a typical Kindle book or digital book. It is actually a facsimile of the paperback book. And I'll go ahead and open it up for this one. And there's the text. And normally you can adjust like text on how much you want the text or the alignment, and you can't do it in this book. This is fixed. So this is a picture of the page of the paperback or hardcover. If I tried to put this on my Kindle Paperwhite, you would get the same page, but it would be so small, it'd be almost impossible to read the text. At least I would think so, without very serious reading glasses. And let's go back. Next is Culture and Anarchy by Matthew Arnold. I believe that is a public domain book on politics. Really can't remember much about it. Next is a science fiction novel, Dark Intelligence by Neil Asher, the transformation book #1. I have read some of his science fiction books before. My favorite is The Skinner. And that was a fabulous science fiction book. I have not read this one, and I don't remember anything about the plot or characters. After that is Beneath Gray Skies by Hugh Ashton. This is almost certainly a free book from Amazon. I am fairly certain this is a self-published book that I picked up for free. As a rule, I don't read self-published books. I've had a very bad experience with self-published books. There was a science fiction book about an alien invasion, and he was a very sloppy writer. Now, I am a bad speller, and I mean a really bad speller, but this guy was trying to talk like a grisly grave, a grisly mess, and something else grisly. But he spelled grizzly like the bear. Yeah. So, I don't know. I almost certainly will never read that one. I next have 2 books by Isaac Asimov, The Gods Themselves and I, Robot. Surprisingly enough, I have not read either of those 2 Isaac Asimov books. I have read a couple of Asimov short stories. Hold on for a second. And the first 2 books of his Foundation series. I am most curious about reading The Gods Themselves, but maybe I, Robot someday. Again, after this is one of my wife's books, Depletion and Abundance, A Life on the New Home Front by Sharon Asterix. My wife's all into creating cozy homes and minimalism, and that's something about that in this book, and I'll probably never read it. Next is a history, An Army at Dawn, The War in North Africa, 1942 to 1943, Volume 1 of the Liberation Trilogy. I picked this up after reading a review in the Washington Post or the New York Times, $1.99. Can't resist. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, another free pickup from the public domain. And the last is the New York Trilogy by Paul Astor. I have read one fabulous novel by Paul Astor, and that is 4321. And that probably deserves its own video, but is the story of a man in parallel lives where there's a major event in his young life when his father's business burns down. And depending on how it burned down and what happened, the character has 4 different lives. Now, this is a different novel. I've heard many good things about the New York Trilogy, but I have not read it. And that takes me to the end of the A's for authors on my Kindle. And I'm going to stop there. If I get, let's say, 20 comments and 20 likes on this video, I will go ahead into my B's and continue this tag onward. So please like, subscribe, and make a comment if you want to see the B authors on what lurks on my Kindle. Thank you. Goodbye.